I was very wrong about this camera looking at the price and the specs on the Flip. I thought this was going to be the Mini 3 versus the Flip. Surprisingly, the Flip camera is much more similar to the Mini 4 Pro's camera. The low light on the Flip is dramatically better than the Mini 3 Pro. Obviously, for the price, there are some limiting features on the Flip compared to the Mini 4 Pro, which I have workarounds, but not everybody will use that. And the cage is a little weird to get used to on the Flip as well. Doesn't make it invincible. Here's a side-by-side of the specs. Just pause the screen if you want to look at this. These are the ones I put at the bottom because I don't really care about those as much. Like if the flight time was only 12 minutes on the Flip, that's an issue, but none of them are an issue here. So let me just save you the time of watching this whole video and tell you that you're not going to find a better drone out there for $400-ish. If price is your limiting factor, then you will have a phenomenal time with the Flip, trust me. As for people deciding if it's worth it to go up in price to a Mini 4 Pro, the Flip is in a really difficult spot here because the Mini 4 Pro has already been established as the most loved, most well-reviewed, overwhelmingly capable for the size, probably their best reviewed drone out there, the best selling, and it's not a bajillion dollars. First, I want to talk about the picture. I am very happy with this. The Flip's picture is really crisp, and I don't know if that's just more contrast and maybe sharpness that DJI wants to go with for their cameras and firmware nowadays, but the Flip does have the look and the feel of the newest generation of drones. Also, the Flip is compatible with the DJI RC2, and thank God you can do this, so you can have all your drones use one remote if that's what you want, if they match that remote. Here's just a standard daytime shot just to get a feel for it before we go into too many technicals. Does this image quality make you feel content? Do you feel like you're getting your bang for your buck out of a drone that is this price and this size? The Mini 4 Pro, a very similar picture. It seems like now there's this digital sharpening, like contrast and exposure balancing. You can see it kind of mixed into the mountains in the background. I do want to apologize. I didn't tap to focus on the background, so foreground stuff looks in focus. That's not the camera that's softer, it's me, sorry. The Mini 3 Pro, when you compare the image, aside from less dynamic range and less exposure balancing, it also has a softer image profile, so less contrast, less sharpness, which isn't necessarily bad because I do prefer that, but it does make the difference between it and the Flip a lot more clear. The Flip, again, completely similar. I mean, you almost wouldn't be able to tell in the middle of the day which camera's which if I had tapped to focus with the Mini 4 Pro and it wasn't blurry. So the Flip has that digital look that's on the Mini 4 Pro. More vibrant colors, more contrast. We're just talking about the normal profile, just taking the footage off the card straight out of the gate. If this is your first drone, you're gonna crap because this is a really great picture. Back to that low light footage I showed you earlier, the Mini 3 Pro struggles because I don't know if there is any exposure balancing and it's having a hard time with this building in the foreground and the sunset back there. That is not the only thing though, because both the Mini 4 Pro and the DJI Flip, both of those two have just a more sensitive sensor. It's better at picking up low light. It still looks crisp. It's not obvious that there's ISO, and all of these right now are ISO 800 and a shutter of 1/60. And surprisingly, the Flip again does better than I thought it would, especially the price. This thing is on par with the Mini 4 Pro. They're basically the same picture. The Mini 4 Pro does have night mode though, so that gives it a huge advantage because even just night mode full auto, it just destroys the others. The Mini 3 Pro just gets swept away. You have to add so much ISO here in order to get this to even be visible, and the Mini 3 and Mini 3 Pro share the same camera, remember that. And with the Mini 4 Pro and the Flip, that means dynamic range, exposure balancing, it's the same in both cameras. This is a very bright day and we're looking at trees on the shady side and you can see everything completely fine. The Flip price is closer to the Mini 3, so you think they would compete, but this is why I say don't. Look at the exposure balancing on this Mini 3 footage, and I had to roll the shutter back to make the trees visible, but now the background is way too bright. The Flip and the Mini 4 Pro can both record Dlog-M flat profile, so you can add the DJI LUT and then manually color later. I do want to say the colors were a little weirder on the Flip. I had to play with the reds and darken them and adjust the greens because the green is way too strong. With the Mini 4 Pro though, just adding the DJI LUT and then adding a little bit of adjustment to exposure really made it look nice. Both of these are 10-bit. However, something very weird, the Flip has 10-bit footage all the time, even in normal profile. The Mini 4 Pro only has 10-bit when it's doing Dlog-M. Both of them will do 4K footage at 100 frames per second maximum. Again, I never need that. 30 or 24 frames is what I always use. You can film a hyperlapse on the DJI Flip, so this is the cheapest a drone can get this type of shot for. This is still only 1080p though when you make the hyperlapse in the app. I always shoot the raw photos and I edit a special way in Adobe Lightroom and then stabilize it, so I manually do mine. That's why they look way better. So you can still do that and take the raw photos and make your own, but straight out of the app, no, this is the 1080p file that you get. You also can't use a shutter of 1/2 a second, which, what the heck, why is that happening? Is it because the processor's too small? That sucks because that's the only shutter I want to use. The Mini 3 Pro and the Mini 4 Pro, obviously they let you do a 1/2-second shutter. I'm not sure why that's the way it is, but somebody smarter than me at DJI who designs these could probably tell you. I can't though. $400-ish to own an Imperial shuttle, and it can get you a picture that is basically identical to what you get from the Mini 4 Pro. That is really cool. Both of these are going to get 12 megapixel photos that are phenomenal. It's the same camera as the Mini 4 Pro. You can do panoramic photos as well. It says 48 megapixel in the specs. That's not true though. Basically they just take a 12 megapixel photo and they blow it up, and they call it pixel binning. It's kind of a gimmick with DJI drones. It's a 12 megapixel sensor. You want to look at the sensor size. That's what matters. They have improved the 48 megapixel. The exposure balancing is better and the details are a little sharper, but trust me, this is nowhere close to 48 megapixels. When we talk about bells and whistles like obstacle avoidance, the Mini 4 Pro and the Mini 3 Pro obviously much superior because they have mostly the whole drone covered with sensors. The Flip just took the caveman approach by covering up the blade, so you can't really break the props on this thing unless something falls into the prop cage past the little spokes. So the anti-bonk system with this new approach is just by being bonk friendly. That's how they're dealing with it. I do notice something though that kind of affects how this thing flies. It definitely does not feel like every other DJI drone. If a Mini 4 Pro is like a little fighter jet zipping around there, then the Flip feels more like flying a boat. I think there's a lot of extra drag on the body because it's larger, but it's just as light. So it feels like there's less weight in the center of the body, and that might be why it struggles much more in the wind than the Mini 4 Pro or even the Mini 3 Pro, which neither one of these care at all. I mean, a slight breeze and they just aren't bothered. Even at the beach in tons of wind, they just don't care. And after flying in a gentle breeze, I would really be cautious about strong wind at the beach using a Flip. So the really big cool thing about the Flip is that it folds, which is really cool, but that doesn't mean it folds in order to be the smallest. The Mini body is still the best size. The portability, it fits in your pocket. The Mini is still the way to go if you want something discreet. The Flip is kind of like a chunky boy. The wheels are really big, and unfortunately, I estimate that I can only smuggle in 20 of these on my body as opposed to 30 Mini 4 Pros. It also has to rest like on its back, upside down. It doesn't stand up on its legs, which is weird. I don't know why my brain assumed that's just the right way up, but it's not. When you open it up, it turns on automatically, which is really cool. Kind of annoying though when you just want to set the drone down and go back to your car and it's already turned on and waiting for you. The ND filters pop onto the outside of the lens on the Flip. I find that really cool, really fun. I like that way more than twisting and sliding and like trying to rip off the jaws on a Mini 4 Pro's face. But these Flip ND filters are super tight, super delicate. Feels like you're going to break them until you get used to it trying to pop them off. If you are doing real estate, the Flip is for you. Probably where it shines the best, honestly, is flying indoors where you're gonna clunk into things. The Minis have sensors that kind of hinder where it's flying because it'll stop you 5 feet away from any wall in any direction. And it'll say it won't go that way, it'll refuse. The Flip will just let you go into it, no issues, because it just doesn't have collision sensors. So, I mean, aside from the front and the bottom, the anticipation is that you will bump into things. With the Mini 4 Pro, you could do this and turn off the sensors and put on prop guards. Again, though, that's more work and it costs more for that drone. And the Flip isn't invincible. It is still small and delicate, so you can't hit things too hard or you will crash. It's really helpful for vines and weeds, things like that normally would tangle up in the blades, and gentle bumps. But if you hit something, your blades won't break, but it will fall. Something I really don't like is that this thing really whines. If it's 5 p.m. and the air is still and you're flying this drone outside, anybody who's out for a walk, there's no way they're not looking. Even for a drone, this thing just ring. It is just a very aggressive compared to a much softer hum from the Minis. I've even got birds back here eating seeds while I'm flying this, and they just really don't care. We know that the Mini 4 Pro can go a little bit farther, but right here with the Flip, I'm going half a mile. No hiccups, no interference, no weird static image or anything, and I'm sitting inside of a metal car. To my friends in the Ukraine, I'm sorry, this is how far I need to go, and I'm happy with that. I'll never need to really fly farther than that. One weird little bonus with the Flip is that it responds very well to landing and taking off from your hand. If you just put your hand under it, it'll respond and it'll land super fast. You don't have to worry about the blades chopping your fingers off. The head turns completely sideways on the Mini 4 Pro, so that's full 4K footage. Shooting vertical on the Flip means it's just cropping in on the wide footage, so it's like 1440p. The difference isn't too bad on a phone though, since this is mostly for social media anyway. You can use the Flip without a remote. It'll just use the DJI Fly app on your phone. Then you can press this little button on the side to do different flight modes like rocket, droney, spotlight. all the little funsy flight modes that I don't care about and never use. It does have a follow me mode though, and this I can see being super handy for anybody who doesn't have any friends and needs to be filmed. This is really cool and really fun. Compared to the Mini 4 Pro though, you'll get better following features. Like the Mini 4 Pro can go faster, it'll follow a truck or a bike. It's also got sensors all over. The Flip will follow you, but it only has that one sensor on the front, that infrared sensor, so you have to be more careful with it. I use about like 3% of my total power here just for a quick test, and it does follow me really well, so it held up. I didn't really care at first, but after looking at this footage, this is like, the exposure balancing is great. This is really freaking cool that it can do this, and it looks really steady too, even though the drone's going all over.
Press the mode button.
And you know what's really cool? I didn't realize this till a day later, but if you have a DJI mic, and I've got mine sitting on my hat, and you plug it into your phone while you're doing this, you don't need friends at all. You can just film your own videos if you're outside doing stuff. If you're doing tutorials outdoors with anything, that is freaking cool. I know that the DJI mic is not that bad. I think it's just the noise canceling because the drone is so whiny. I'll have to play with the settings, but I'll worry about that later. With the Flip, I didn't find the same chemistry that I did with the Mini 4 Pro. The Mini 4 Pro still, anytime I have to like film a new chapter for my course or something, I'm like excited to do it. Any chance to use the Mini 4 Pro, I'm happy. That isn't to say the Flip doesn't have its cool features though. I'm just not somebody who's crashing a lot. I don't fly near things a lot. Maybe if you're a beginner and you depend on these features more, then yeah, that is something that would stand out to you, so it makes sense. Then again, you could just get prop guards for a Mini 4 Pro though. But when we take into consideration that this is a way lower price comparatively, yeah, unbelievable amount of stuff you can do with this thing for the price. So no, it's not as capable as the Mini 4 Pro, but it really like pulls its weight. To put this in perspective, if this was a competitor's drone, I'd be crapping my pants right now, and I'm so happy. It's just that it's a DJI drone going against another DJI drone, which is already established, so it makes it a little tougher. And at this point, the price is really what's motivating the Flip. If this is for your kid and you want to guarantee that they won't crash this thing on day one, the Flip is a great choice. Super capable, a very high ceiling before you run out of features, before you outgrow this thing. This is professional quality. This is the same camera as the Mini 4 Pro. If it's between the Flip and the Mini 4K, there's not even a conversation there. The Flip destroys the Mini 4K in every single field. Dynamic range, low light, flight time, picture quality, everything. The only thing that the Mini 4K could beat it at is size and anxiety. The size because it is technically the smallest one, and that's just so cool to fit it in your butt pocket. Anxiety because if you hit a power line with the Mini 4K and you see this thing catch fire and fall out the sky on some kid's head, it was only $200, so you're not going to crap as hard as you would. Between these two though, overall experience, you're not going to shut up about your Mini 4 Pro. You're going to be the annoying guy in the office. I don't think the Flip really hits that note. I do think it's a great option if you prioritize the price and the areas that it is different in the end.